Good morning, fam. What is going on? It is Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. Can I get a roll tide inside the comment box? I appreciate you guys for being here. Today is Tuesday. Today is October 8th. It is 9 a.m. I appreciate you guys being here on the show today. We're talking about Jaheim Oatis, who announced yesterday that he is entering the transfer portal after this season has completed. We're going to talk about the pressure and the adversity that Alabama now faces following its loss to Vanderbilt. We're going to talk about Alabama's running game. I'd like some feedback there in terms of what you've seen from Alabama's running game thus far through 5 games of the season. Penalties. We're going to hit on that. Does anybody know, without cheating right now, if you read your websites, where Alabama ranks in the country in terms of penalties? All right. We're going to talk about what we've learned up to this point in time. It's a long season left. All right. Long season left. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. You know, following a loss, it's always interesting to see how a team reacts. Now, covering Alabama football, you know, I could probably count the losses that I've seen Alabama have throughout the course of time. Now, when you see how Coach Saban in the past dealt with losses, and you kind of look to that Texas loss last year, it was an opportunity for Alabama to kind of fight and to respond back. So I want to get your take in just a minute after I talk about Jaheim Oatis, and start thinking about this now. What do you want to see from this team? Do you believe that this team can fight? Do you think that they can face adversity in kind of a bounce back type situation? I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. Let's talk about Jaheim Oatis right now, the big man who announced yesterday that he is transferring from the University of Alabama following this season. You're seeing a lot of this in college football. It's going to continue to happen. I would imagine that it happens again to Alabama. This isn't going to be isolated. I have no idea who the next player is to enter the transfer portal, but I think we're going to continue to see this going forward because of the rules and parameters that are now within college football. Think about where we've come over the last 5 years. This was never going to happen during the season, and now look, you don't play. You're not happy with the situation. You just announced at the beginning of the season. Remember, it used to be at the back end of the season. And before that, transfer portal wasn't even a thing. All right, so when we're looking at Jaheim Oatis, a couple things. We'll go full screen on this. He's 6'5", right? A 325-pound junior, right? This season, played in 68 snaps. Didn't play against Vanderbilt, so obviously he made that choice before that game. In 2023, he played in 13 games. He had 3 starts, and he played in 306 snaps. Saw a lot of time, right? In 2022, he had 10 starts out of 12 games, 297 snaps. And Pete Thamel, he announced that Jaheim Oatis cited playing time as one of the bigger issues while he is leaving, right? And also cited that, just things, didn't work out yesterday. Coach Kalen DeBoer talked about the fact that it could be other reasons, didn't kind of, explain exactly why. And then Clinton Dix had words as well. He said, look, players are opting out to redshirt year because they didn't get playing time. What about creating good habits and working on your craft? Just quit? No more reps at practice? No more routine. Just go into the portal. Rusty. Got it. I think it's interesting to kind of look at, the players that are entering the transfer portal and how this is continuing to impact college football overall. And we talk a lot about entitlement, right? It's like, if you don't play me, I'm leaving. And I do get where is coming from, but man, the game has completely changed and college football is not the same. I love those stories about guys who wait their turn for their opportunities and they just kind of keep working in the dark, in the silence. And then when you're called on, you rise up and you have a really good year. Jaheim Oatis, look, I didn't talk to him. He said, he's leaving for this, that, or the other. If it is playing time, that is disappointing. And I think a lot about playing time is kind of based on your abilities and kind of looking at the depth chart. I think if you really want to know my honest opinion about Jahiem Otis, here it is, okay? When Jahiem Otis first got here, he was way too heavy, just like Tim Keenan was, okay? These guys had to make such a transition with their body type to be able to get on the field. Jahiem Otis did that. If you remember a couple years ago, people couldn't stop talking about his weight transformation and how he was able to lose, what was it, like close to 100 pounds or something like that? Do you remember this? And then that year he followed up with a monster year. He had 10 starts in 2022, right? And so, I think he started to trend the opposite way in terms of his overall play. And that's my honest assessment. And I think he's been beat out by other guys at the position. And that's it. So you can work harder. Or if you're upset with your playing time, this is where you're at in college football and you have this opportunity. I don't like to see it. I think he's a good player. But look, if he isn't an elite player, then when is he going to play? Because I'll tell you who is elite is, you started to look at kind of that defensive line room. And look, I get it. I don't know if any of these guys are elite because they've been having, the whole defense has been having trouble stopping the rush. But let's just look for comparative sake at some of the players next to him, okay? And these are Pro Football Focus grades along with snap counts and total tackles. So if you start to the left and we're comparing it against Jahiem Otis, you have Tim Keenan, who has 23 tackles in 198 snaps, right? He has 1 quarterback sack. You have Tim Smith, who has 13 tackles. He has 3 quarterback pressures in 177 snaps. Now, again, Jahiem Otis did not play against Vanderbilt, but I think we've continued to see a rise of James Smith, who's been really good, and I think he's a player that I think has leapfrogged Otis. And Tim Smith has kind of held Otis off, and then Tim Keenan's been playing great, right? So now you're going to see a player like Damon Payne get more playing time. And now, Jahiem Otis will transfer. And one thing that we've learned about the transfer portal, too, how many times have you seen players continue to hit the transfer portal again and again and again, bouncing all over the place? Did you see this? Did you see that Christian Leary, remember the wide receiver? He's in the transfer portal again. Coach Saban said that every single time a player enters the transfer portal, it decreases his chance to graduate. That's what he said. I'll never forget that. All right. So there's a look at the Alabama defensive line now with Jahiem Otis hitting the transfer portal. Let me ask you this. In regards to Jahiem Otis hitting the transfer portal, at the end of the season, are you surprised? Type Y if you are, type N if you're not. And I know there's some other players that you probably weren't wondering about as well. Look, if the players haven't played over 4 games, they can hit the transfer portal. Like Keon, people are asking about Keon Keeley. Can he hit the transfer portal? 1,000,000%. And I think there's some things. Look, there's things. I don't know if this is happening. Okay, I'm just saying this is hypothetical. What I'm about to say. There could be situations. I don't know if that exists here to where the money's not right, so the players aren't playing. I deserve more. Pay me more, and then I'll play then I'll play. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, this you can pick this up at the student store. I just went over and grabbed it. It's a little bit. This is a large. It runs a little bit big, but it is super comfy. This is like that Sunday comfy. It might be a little too comfy for game day. So a lot of people not surprised to see it. You kind of saw, you kind of saw the writing on the wall. But I think, there's no more sitting and waiting your time. And I think that is something that the coaches are going to continue to battle now in college football. All coaches. How do we continue to keep these players on the field, keep them happy if they're not playing? Remember a couple years ago, if you didn't play, work harder, wait your turn. Now it's just I'm not happy with my playing time. I'm leaving. And I get it. Coaches can do that. How about just a normal student? If they don't like the school that they're at, they can go to another school, whatever. I mean, this is just the world that we're at. But I promise you, if you continue to stay the course and you continue to work hard and you get called on to play at the University of Alabama at some point in time, it is going to pay dividends, right? Practicing against these guys every single day, if you're not starting it still, you're going against elite competition all the time. Who are some examples of guys who have waited their turn? I don't know if that'll, happen anymore. I can think of guys, before kind of the transfer portal that waited. I think of like a Chris Broswell. He's a guy that waited. Of course, Mac Jones, but that was before all this NIL and transfer portal. I mean, Jahiem Otis, I just feel that Jahiem was kind of trending the wrong way, unfortunately. But that's the truth. And if you're out there, use it as rat poison to your life, get back on track, and start balling out. See, but like Eric and Jarvis are pointing out to Mac Jones. Mac Jones, perfect example is Ty Simpson. I don't like the Mac Jones comparison because this whole NIL and transfer portal was before his time. But Ty Simpson is a great, great example. He could have left this past summer. Right? He didn't. He stayed here. That's a great example. Ty Simpson is like the example. Robert brings up a great point, and Robert also has an incredible avatar. Crazy you have to re-recruit the players. I read an article. Yes, I just read an article recently about having to re-recruit the players every single time the season's done. That's exactly right. Because guess what? After the season's done, the players are going to go in. Hey, coach, can I talk to you? This is my agent. Based on my performance and what I've done and the accolades, this is what I'm asking for. I'm asking for a raise. I want more NIL money because this is what I did. This is it. I went to a scrimmage this summer for Alabama, and all they played on the PA again and again, that open scrimmage that anybody in the world could go to, is all they said was, please support Yay Alabama. We want to be competitive, so you need to give money back to us so we can give it to the players. Paul brings up a point. He's like, just like marriage, you have to keep dating your wife when you're married. You have to keep recruiting your players. I like that. Yep. You got to keep taking them out to dinner, the flowers, writing the little notes. Notes go hard. Austin, what's up, man? I appreciate you being here. All right, next topic. Oh, by the way, did you see? Usually on Wednesdays they do like college football headlines. But did you see another Georgia football player was arrested in charge with what I saw to be a serious charge? I think it's Colby Young, right? Believe he's a wide receiver. Did you see this? Man. Terrible. I just saw that kind of run through the headlines before I was jumping on. Today on the show, we're talking about Jahiem Otis hitting the transfer portal, the pressure and adversity that Alabama will face, and how will they respond, right? We're going to talk about Alabama's running game. I have a couple of questions that I'd like to pose to you. Penalties. I asked in the beginning of the show, does anybody know how many penalties or where Alabama ranks in the nation in terms of penalties? Yeah, Eric D. I saw his battery. Yeah, man. How many hey, Jarvis, can you look this up real quick? How many players from Georgia have been arrested since January of this year? Crazy. Unbelievable. And we're going to talk about what we learned and then questions that remained. All right, so we talked about these points on Jahiem Otis. Now, let's talk about pressure and adversity. I love this, okay? I love this for Alabama. Robert, I appreciate the super chat. He says, I think Sheridan is trying to get Milroe the Heisman so he can have one on his resume. And if he doesn't start using those running backs, some will transfer. That could very well be the case, all right? Jarvis is saying 25 guys from Georgia have been arrested since January. 25. That's an entire recruiting class. That is 25 since January 2023. Okay. Whoa, that is wild. That's half your recruiting class within those 2 seasons, right? On pressure and adversity for Alabama. Okay, so here they stand on Monday, and they took it on the chin against Vanderbilt. You've been seeing the continued coverage and the national headlines that they were embarrassed, right, by Vanderbilt, beat up and down the field, this and that. So how will they respond? I think this loss comes at a really good time. Does it come to against a great team? I don't know if Vanderbilt's a great team. They're a good football team, right? We can go back and forth on that, whatever it is. But how will they respond at a critical point in time? How many times in life does a wake-up call provide a bounce back? Does this team have it in them? So how will they respond, right? Will they play the poor me's, right? Oh, it was like penalties. We don't deserve this. We're mad. Start pointing fingers at each other. That's the worst thing, is the finger pointing, right? And I hope it doesn't get to this, but a division of the team. And I haven't seen this in a long time. Is like former players now, coming after, the coach and what they're doing. Like Damian Harris, his comments on Coach Kalen DeBoer, right? And so what you have to do, I think, in my opinion, is you have to kind of seal up everything within the team and put a dome over it and be like, look, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? What are our goals? Let's look at our pyramid, right? We can still achieve everything on this pyramid. But you have to take accountability for the way that they played. And that starts with everybody. That goes for, the defense. That goes for Malachi Moore's actions, which he took accountability for. That goes for Coach Kane Womack, right? For taking accountability for the defense and getting outcoached by Vanderbilt. And they have to take accountability and look themselves in the mirror. And then they have to take action. And that should have started yesterday at practice. Eric D, that's a great question. Coach Eric D asks, Coach KD looked nervous. Maybe he's talking about yesterday. Is he ready for this? Yeah, I mean, if not now, then when, right? Did the Jets really fire their coach? Dang. Aaron Rodgers. Yo, that's my fantasy quarterback. Who will they be calling? Wow, that's wild. But this is the very first time this entire year that Coach Kalen DeBoer has gone through any type of adversity. Anytime. Right? When? Every single thing he's done has been absolutely perfect. And he's been applauded for every single thing. So now, okay, honeymoon clearly over. The pressure's on. Everybody's judging every single thing now. His T-shirt, right? His physical appearance. How he's, the discipline with Malachi Moore, that he should have been suspended, that they agree with him, right? Everything is now under a microscope. That's pressure. How do you deal with it? And the adversity, right? So, great opportunity for this team to showcase how they've taken accountability, how they can remain as a team, and put it on South Carolina, who, by the way, look, I know we haven't talked a lot about South Carolina yet, but this team can run the football. And it seems like this team, Alabama, has a hard time stopping teams that can run the football directly at them. Their running back is really good. If you watch any of South Carolina football, they can't throw the football that well. But, man, they can run the ball. They beat Kentucky. And they should have beat LSU too. I thought that this game coming up against South Carolina would be more of the trap game. Derek is still upset. Yeah, I think a lot of people are, for sure. Yeah, Max, South Carolina, man, This team needs to be taking the 21 points. That is like the worst rat poison ever. Just like Angel saying, they can run the ball. I'm telling you. All right, so pressure and adversity. Usually things change from this. Things become better from this. Think about how Alabama football played last year after they were punched in the teeth. They played much better football, right? I did see this. Joel Klatt, and I know people don't like his takes. Some people do. He's another, he has a really big platform, big name. He said that Alabama has a big offense and that they're going to have to score over 45 points to win the rest of their games. That's it. He's like, they're not going to have the defense that they're accustomed to. Robert in with the super chat. Appreciate you. How would the L look if Vandy finishes in the top 25? They play Texas, LSU, and Tennessee. Vandy's going to be tough for any of those teams. That's the thing. The SEC is an absolute gauntlet. Look at the team right now. Texas A&M is up at the top with a 3-0 record. Georgia's lost. Tennessee's lost. Alabama's lost. LSU, they've lost, right? But they're also, that's another good point. There's not a lot of room for error as you continue to push forward, right? You lose another game in the SEC, and even though Vanderbilt is a good team, they still do have the stigma of like not being a good team. So they will be judged on that. You lose another game here in conference play. I don't know if, what your chances are to make even the 12-team playoff, which would be crazy to all of us with the team that Coach Kalen DeBoer has. Like, this guy took over the most loaded college football team ever. He is put up in the best situation possible ever. Coach Saban left it completely full for him. Time for a little bit of adversity. That's good. That's fine. I think it provides growth, but you got to take control of that locker room. Maybe he does have it. I don't know. Those are like outside questions that I have. I'm going to talk about in a second. Okay, I have a question about the running game. And there's not a lot wrong with the offense, in my opinion. I mean, for those of you that, I haven't seen a lot in here, but kind of on the outside, if there's anyone else like criticizing Milroe, you're absolutely crazy. Like, you have not watched the development and the progression of Milroe. It's really remarkable. I have stats to back it up. It's not my opinion. It's physical stats. And the play that we've seen with our own eyeballs. But the running game for Alabama, I thought that we would have seen a little bit more ground and pound in some of these sustained drives and whatever the case. And I know the game, dictates different game plans. But here's a look at the last 4 games for Alabama, okay? So you can divide all this by 4, for example, right? In the last 4 games, Jalen Milroe has 37 carries for 202 yards and 5 touchdowns. So clearly he's getting the majority of the carries, whether it's design quarterback runs or just running by himself. Jaheim Miller only has 19 carries, right, for 124 yards and 3 touchdowns. Justice Haynes, 14 carries, 75 yards. So, that one of the things I think about is kind of the running game, because I have seen the offensive line take steps forward, and I'm going to ask you about the offensive line because I do have a question about the right tackle. I don't know. Every single week, I'm like, is Jaheim Miller or Justice Haynes, are these guys going to run for more than 50 yards? I would have thought they would have been putting together a ton of carries this year, but maybe that's not part of their offensive identity. Again, they're scoring over 40 points a game. Hey, Tobias, what's up? Tobias is now in the Netherlands. Appreciate you being here, man. Usually you're out in Germany. We appreciate you watching. Derek Wilson says, did you hear the Derrick Henry interview when he said that Bama players fighting each other with suits on the bus on the way to the Natty? That was the Reuben Foster era. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how things I think have changed from those type of teams mentality to like this type. Like I don't know. Like I love Tim Keenan. I have a lot of respect for him. I have never seen, like, in the post-game interviews, I keep thinking about, like, did you see the sunglasses with the big chain on? The guys, like, giving interviews? Like, this is pro sports now. 100% it's pro. But maybe nothing's wrong with the running game. I'm just, it's something that just stands out to me. I mean, Justice Haynes only getting 2 carries against Wisconsin. I didn't see that coming. Someone brought up, if you don't, would these guys have more carries at different schools? I have no idea. Probably so, though. This is really important right here, okay? All right, penalties this season. So I have 2 columns split up. On the left, I'm talking about penalties compared to other teams that we frequently talk about. And on the right, it's penalties per game. So on the left, you have Ohio State. Their rank in penalties is 23. They have 23 penalties for 207 yards. Texas, 47, 32, 249. You guys can read. Alabama, their rank is 102, and they have 40 penalties this season for 366 yards. So there was this theme going around that a lot of Coach Kalen DeBoer's teams, they rack up a lot of penalties, and it's kind of fitting to Alabama thus far, right? Like, I would have never thought that they were 102 right now in 5 games in the season. That is a ton of penalties. Then I looked at Georgia, and I was like, man, they're in a worse spot. Then I looked at Ole Miss, right? Look at Ole Miss, 49 penalties for 482 yards. That's crazy. Now, all those teams have lost on the bottom 3, and the teams, above have not lost. That's kind of an interesting correlation. Maybe it means nothing, but Oregon hasn't lost yet, but they play Ohio State next. Texas, they're undefeated as the number 1 team in the country. Just something that popped off to me. Now, on the right, Robert's saying that SEC refs have something to do with those penalties. On the right, you have Western Kentucky. They had 7 for 59. They had 13 penalties against South Florida. And then they had 4 for 40. I think Wisconsin is like top 5. They barely get penalties at all. I think they probably have less. I'm serious. I think they have less than 12 penalties this entire season so far. Yeah, Hattie May, I saw that. We were talking about the UGA player, Colby Young, who was arrested. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, man. Absolutely crazy. Jarvis brought it up. He said, I think it is it 24 players that have been arrested at Georgia since 2023? Against Wisconsin, and then against Georgia, 10 for 90. And then against Vanderbilt, 6 for 57. The thing about that Vanderbilt game is there was 3 costly penalties. 3 of them whereas on that sequence that certainly cut into Alabama's or that extended Vanderbilt's 17-play drive. Tony Jr. is asking about Keon Keeley. They haven't said that he's injured. They just say that, they keep, like, Freddie Roach keeps on saying that he's just proud of Keon Keeley. That was like the last update. It's like, proud of him for the updates that he continues to make. That was it. We haven't heard anything about Keon Keeley, though, other than that. I think he's played in 3 snaps. So could he, if he wanted to, I have no idea why he would want to transfer or whatever, but I'm saying because he hasn't played 4 games, he could transfer. So, maybe tomorrow we'll look at, who has played in how many games just to kind of see it on paper. Penalties have to, I don't know. Is this an official thing? Some of the penalties, like there was a couple penalties in that South Florida game, and I know Welcome Formby didn't have his best game, but he was called for some weird penalties. But like illegal substitution, you can stop that. Roughing the passer, it was roughing the passer. The face mask, it was a face mask. You can eliminate those type of penalties. So what have we learned? Can I also ask you for this? Because I kind of had, so I have 2 parts of this, okay? So I have What have we learned up at the top? And then I have question marks. So let's just start at the top. Nicole, what's up? I appreciate you being here. Let's start at the top. What have we learned? Because I started listing things and I was kind of close to my show time, so I had to kind of move on. I couldn't spend a lot of time thinking about it. What have we learned so far? Like, what is absolute truth? What I came up with, go ahead and post it like inside the comment box. I would like some feedback here. What is absolute truth to me so far is that Milroe has shown great improvement. Robert says with another $2 super chat, the teams that are disciplined are the older teams. Hey, what's up, Anitra? I see you inside the comment box. Good morning to you. Appreciate you being here. Yanzi Pierre, he's played a little bit. He's played a little bit. But I started up top. Like, what are the absolute truths so far through 5 games? Milroe's progress and what he's been able to do, like 100,000,000%. Most confident there. And then Ryan Williams is absolute truth. Like, those two things, nobody could argue differently. Nobody. Like, those two, that's like it. The offensive line is solid, but not elite. Now, the right tackle, I kind of listed that on the bottom. Is there an issue at the right tackle position? Because I think you have 4 really high-performing offensive linemen, and then I think you have, to be honest, I think you have an average right tackle, if that. Quincy, man. Oh, man, you don't think Milroe's improved at all? Oh, I got the stats, man. I got to show you them. I appreciate your feedback, though. Max says the right tackle is the weak link. I know, it absolutely is. Redfish Stalker, 21 in 2021, 107 penalties. 2022, 103 penalties. Oh, Redfish, I like that. Good stats. Robert is saying we'll know Saturday if DeBoer has control of this team. See, Jarvis, this is an interesting point. Jarvis says if Ryan Williams didn't reclassify, Alabama would have 2 losses. And somebody asked me, I think yesterday on the show, about that. Like, if Ryan, and this is hypothetical, right? If Ryan Williams doesn't come here, is Jeremy Bernard the guy doing these things? He made a hell of a catch against Vanderbilt. He's not Ryan Williams, but Jeremy Bernard's really good. You would think like someone else would step up. But to picture Alabama without Ryan Williams this year, it is a little scary, right? The defense is clearly the major issue. We talked about that a million different times following the Vanderbilt game. So what are some other question marks? I came up with these. And again, I didn't spend a lot of time on this. Maybe I'll think about it more. Emmanuel Henderson looked nice returning that kick, right? I thought he was going to take it to the house. I thought it, you know what? I thought you look at Alabama, returning kicks. Kendrick Law almost returned one to the house, and so did Emmanuel Henderson. And I'm asking, is Kane Womack, is he capable as a DC? Those are like question marks. We don't, right? I think we have a right to question that at this point in time. Ooh, Greg, that's a good one. Lack of pass rush. I like that. Jarvis is saying missing a dominant defensive note. Yeah, I like these. And Redfish Stalker, I agree with you on that. 45 points a game, right? Yeah, these are good. Yeah, Emmanuel Henderson's fast, man. And then I said at the bottom, does DeBoer have control? And Jordan posts, what's up, Jordan? I see you inside the comment box, man. Thanks for being here. DeBoer has control. The upperclassmen just know that they've had to downgrade the defense with Saban and Kevin Steele being replaced with Kane Womack. And I was talking about this too. I was like, okay, I don't condone any of Malachi's actions, right? And I probably would have suspended him. But it's Coach Kalen DeBoer's team. Whatever. We move past that. I love that Malachi took accountability, close it up, move forward. And the reason why I support Malachi so much is that's the only time I've ever seen Malachi do anything that didn't represent the Alabama brand to the fullest. Like, this guy has such, it would be like he has like an 800 credit report. Seriously. He like missed a payment. It'd be like something like that. Like, you'd be like, oh my God, like, really? But I do think there needed to be, but it's Coach Kalen DeBoer's team. So whatever, you move forward. And Malachi's a good person. He's a good person. So, and raise your hand if you're perfect. I didn't see no hands raised. So, you know, I started thinking about, but why did he act like that? And maybe he is so, and you kind of always thinking like the psychology of it. I love psychology. It's like, why is he acting like that? You know, being a parent, you're like, why are they acting like that? Are they just being spoiled? Are they tired? Are they hungry? Right? There's always some reason. And maybe he's acting out because of the frustration that he's seeing from the defensive side. There's a rumor going around that he was pissed off because Alabama didn't make any defensive adjustments. Now, anybody could have came up with that rumor. That was just something that was thrown out, but at least it's something to kind of think about. I didn't like, the part that I didn't like most is like, there was a lot of parts I didn't like most, but like waving off like Kane, because there needs to be a direct hierarchy. And that's why I kind of asked, does DeBoer have control? It needs to be DeBoer, Kane Womack, Nick Sheridan, the assistant coaches, and then the captains go to them, and then the players go to the captains. Charles is saying, love how you make excuses for a player losing his shit as a captain. I mean, aren't you a leadership accountability? Yeah, I mean, look, I'm saying that he needed to be disciplined. Now, will he be disciplined like internally? I don't know. Probably. I would have suspended him from like actual playing time. But again, it's DeBoer's team. And this is another thing I was talking about with people here, that like in the South, like living here, like discipline is like, there has to be discipline. Seriously. Like I'm serious. Like it's a different vibe here. And I don't know if he understands the culture of it. A lot of people were shocked that there wasn't, more discipline, but again, it's his team. So, but if it happens again, and it continues to be a pattern, I'm curious if you see, like, if there's other players that see that action and they're not disciplined, like, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Oh, here's my stats for Milroe. Quincy, check these out. Jalen Milroe this season, 7-9, 200 yards up at the top against Western Kentucky, 16-26 against South Florida, against Wisconsin, 12 of 17, 196 yards. Those are all light work, right? Against Georgia, check this out. 27-33, 374 yards, 2 touchdowns, 16 rushes for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns, going absolutely crazy. And then against Vanderbilt, 18-24, 310 yards, 1 touchdown, 7 of 10 with another rushing touchdown. The thing about it is, I think that what we've seen from, like, I strongly feel that if Alabama would have had another opportunity on offense, they would have scored. Now, that sack that led to a fumble, like, that was on Pritchett, 1,000,000%, right? Some people asking about a targeting call that wasn't called. Maybe the one about Kobe Prentice could have been called for targeting as well. Dude absolutely got crushed in between two Vanderbilt players, right? Kevin, go warm up your coffee, man. We'll be here. On the season, Jalen Milroe, 1,500 yards and 20 total touchdowns. All right. And then this is the biggest thing. Is like, and I showed this yesterday, but here's Jalen Milroe's passing tree. So this is from Pro Football Focus. I'll walk you through it. Up at the top 3 columns, it's 20 yards and above, right? So 2 of 5, 84 yards, and they have an NFL rating of 127 with 2 touchdowns. I think Jeremy Bernard caught a touchdown and Ryan Williams in that quadrant. Between the numbers and 20 yards downfield, continue to be elite, right? 5 of 6, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, 158. and an NFL rating of 158.3, 6 of 11 to the outside right, 318, 3 touchdowns, 139 NFL rating. For whatever reason on this quadrant, the 1 of 6 for 15 to anything above 10 and below 20, that's kind of like that weak point right there on the chart. But for those of you that are curious about the intermediate passing, I mean, check this out. I mean, 11 of 13, 212, 5 of 6, 12 of 13 to the left, 17 of 22, 8 of 8. He's almost perfect with the intermediate passes. And then anything kind of, behind the line or screens or whatever, 3 of 3, 9 of 10, 2 of 2. Right? Stunt Channel, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. Yeah, I was drinking the Kane Womack Kool-Aid for sure. I think earlier in the season, I was really excited, and it kind of felt like he was a guy that kind of understood what it took to play high-level defense. I think the only concern was kind of like this complete reconstruction of the defense, but also knowing at the same time that he has a young secondary. But against Vanderbilt, it was easy to jump off the train. So still a young season. But, man, yesterday, hearing him talk with the filibuster, didn't like that. So we'll see how he does. It's a big thing about the jumps. He went from head coach at South Alabama to the DC at Alabama against the SEC. And that's just Vanderbilt. Alabama hasn't even played, South Carolina, Tennessee, LSU. It's only going to get harder. All right, so the matchup coming up this weekend, Saturday, October 12th, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. The TV is on ABC. Alabama is favored by 21. Alabama 4-1, South Carolina 3-2. Sellers for South Carolina doesn't have a lot of passing yards, but this team can run the football, right? Raheem Sanders, 65 carries for 315 yards and 4 touchdowns. Bennett is their leading receiver with 14 receptions for 200 yards. Historically, when you look at this matchup, it's interesting. These two teams don't play each other a ton. 2019, the Najee game. I say Najee game because that's when he put the dude's head into the turf, right? Kind of ran for that incredible score. 47-23 was the final of that game. And then back in 2010, that was when South Carolina defeated Alabama 35-21 with the quarterback by the name of Steven Garcia, who actually had a higher percentage passing-wise than Pavia did this past Saturday. Which is crazy to think about. He played like the game of his life. That was like the best game that Steven Garcia ever played, right? And then before that, they played in 2009, 2005. So not a lot of, times that these two teams meet within the SEC. Here's some rat poison. Against Vanderbilt, Alabama had a 92% chance to win that game. They lost. So this is for the rat poison. 91% to win this game. It opened at 22.5. I think it's still floating at 21, right, Jarvis? Redfish Stalker, yeah, I think Vandy did just punt one time. And Max is saying that game is at 2:30 against Tennessee. Yep, you're right. Here's a look at the two teams in their last 5 games. Each team coming off a loss. South Carolina lost to Ole Miss 27-3. Before that, they beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 50-7. Lost to LSU in a game they really should have won, 36-33. Beat up on Kentucky earlier in the season, 31-6. And Old Dominion 23-19. For the Crimson Tide, I think they're still scoring over 40 points a game, coming off the loss against Vanderbilt, as you know, 42-35. Here's a look at the next 5 for the Alabama Crimson Tide. You got South Carolina. The game time for Tennessee has been updated to that 2:30. So write that down for those of you making the trip up to Knoxville for the 3rd weekend in October. Then you got Missouri, who just lost to Texas A&M. You have an open week. That will be Alabama's 2nd open week before taking on LSU, Mercer, and Oklahoma. Man, this is a challenging road schedule. Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma. I still think the game against Oklahoma is going to be tough. I don't care where Oklahoma is on the spectrum. I just think at that point in time, I mean, that game could be cold. I mean, who knows? I think that'll be a really challenging game. This week in college football, some excellent games. I've updated this graphic. I didn't like the way that it looked the first time. But here we go. You got Texas favored by 14.5, taking on Oklahoma. The game is in Dallas. The Red River rivalry. Man, say that 3 times faster. Say it once. Penn State, 5-point favorite against USC. Games in Los Angeles at 2:30. The great thing about it is like this YouTube TV, how they have those 4 games on at once. Yo, I love that. And then Ohio's the big one that we're all watching, right? Ohio State taking on Oregon in Eugene. Ohio State favored by 3. Ole Miss traveling to Death Valley where they are 2. Man, I don't know about this one. That the last time those 2 teams played, I think it was like in the 70s or something like that. And then Kansas State taking on Colorado. I don't know if I'll be awake at that point in time. But, I could imagine that game goes into overtime or something weird like that. Eric D's asking, Kyle, if we lose this game, do you think heads will start rolling? I mean, if you lose this game to South Carolina, who knows what happens, honestly. I don't even know when the last time Alabama lost 2 games in a row was. I would imagine, considering the pressure and kind of adversity, I mean, the coaching staff would get a tremendous amount of heat. I don't think that happens. Then again, I thought Alabama would beat Vanderbilt, by a large margin. So, I don't predict the future. I just think that this team will be able to bounce back. I mean, I think there's too many high-level competitors on this team, and I do think that, they'll come together rather than divide. I think people will try to divide them, right? You're starting to hear opposing views from the outside. If they can seal all that out and just get back to work, I think it'd be good to go. I mean, they're so talented, right? That's another scary thing, Jarvis, is that's probably, yeah, you're right. You lose to South Carolina, you're not the cool school anymore. Right now, Alabama's still like the elite, the place that you want to go to. You lose to South Carolina, you lose to Vanderbilt. Yeah, you lose recruits. And as I spoke about, the ramifications to a loss to Vanderbilt, highly impactful, right? Another loss in the SEC, it pretty much takes away your chances of playing in the SEC title game. The loss to Vanderbilt will be brought up if Alabama's kind of like one of these bubble type teams, right? They'll be like, well, you lost to Vanderbilt, right? Whereas like Tennessee, you lost to Arkansas. The loss to Vanderbilt is worse than Tennessee losing to Arkansas and, Ole Miss losing to Kentucky, in my opinion. Even though, I mean, Vanderbilt's a pretty good team, I just think that they still have a stigma about them. And bottom line is no one will ever forget losing to Vanderbilt. Nobody will. I mean, they carried the goalpost and threw it in the river. Down Broadway, right? In case you missed this, this is Pro Football Focus grades. Up at the top, you got Caden Proctor. I circled him because if you look to the far right, his passing grade is really good. I mean, if you look to what he's been able to do this season, it's great. I mean, 87.9. But Elijah Pritchard, on the opposite side of him, has a grade of 48.4, right? That's why I'm like, do we have an issue at the right tackle position? Yeah, Eric D's like, but Alabama beat Georgia. You're absolutely right. And you kind of have to almost root for Georgia now. Do you? Do you have to root for Georgia for like Alabama's chances? Because look, Georgia's about to go on the road. I think I have it, on the slate, their remaining schedules. They go to the road to Ole Miss and they go to Texas. Mike G, I'll fire up the call-in line next show. Usually I do the call-in line on Mondays, Wednesday. I also have to pay for this call-in line too. Because the more people that wait on the line, I have to pay for the line. So it's like, it does add up. The more people, like, that's why I only have three lines available, because the people, like, if people wait on the line, I had to pay for it. This is kind of like business wise, right? And then again, Jalen Milroe with that, ridiculous 90% grade, which is crazy on Pro Football Focus. They rarely give anybody 90s on anything. On the defensive side, we talked about Jahad Campbell having the lowest grade of his career, 38.0. I kind of underlined Damani Jackson. They're a couple rows behind him, 73.6 in defense. LT Overton had a tackle grade of 25, which is crazy. Q Rob had a pass rushing grade of 60. So, yeah, the grades are just utterly low. We hit on this, but just kind of to put this to bed, we know what's at stake. It's the defense. These guys have to tighten up. I mean, the last two bullet points are the ones that scare me the most. The last two games, Alabama has allowed 691 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. The last two games, Alabama has allowed 74 points and 937 yards of offense. All right, I'm going to take that graphic off the screen. Here's a look at my top 10, but the teams that they're remaining. It kind of shows, a variation of the teams and who they have remaining. Texas, they still have Oklahoma, Georgia, Vandy. This has turned into a pretty challenging schedule based on what we know about these teams now. Think about it. Oklahoma, that's a rivalry game. Georgia's Georgia. Vanderbilt just punched Alabama in the mouth. Florida, they're on their last leg fighting. They're like in the Alamo right now fighting for Billy Napier. Arkansas just beat Tennessee. Kentucky seems like they're punching above their belt. They should have beat Georgia. And then Texas A&M is undefeated in SEC play. Texas, that's a challenging schedule right now, at least at this point in time, right? Ohio State, they take on Oregon. Then they have Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, Michigan. Georgia, I guess you could see their best win is against Clemson. Mississippi State, Texas, Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Texas and Ole Miss, Tennessee, that's a tough schedule right there too. Ole Miss, LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia. Man. Yeah, I didn't know where to put Ole Miss. Probably behind Georgia. I at one time before I put these rankings on, I had Bama at 3. And then I redid this to put, kind of the target on it. I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I know Texas is 1, Ohio State's 2, and then I don't know who the next teams are. Like, for example, is Oregon better than, I don't know, are they better than Tennessee? What about Miami? They barely won their last 2 games. Who wins, Oregon or Ole Miss? Who wins, Tennessee or Miami? I think we'd all say Tennessee, but Miami keeps winning. And I hate putting Notre Dame anywhere in my top 10, but they beat Texas A&M. Texas A&M is number 1 in the SEC with 3 wins. I don't know. It's hard for me after, though. So I switched these around a couple times. I would imagine that if Miami doesn't lose, how crazy would it be if Miami loses to Florida State? That would be crazy. Hey, B-Rob, what's up, man? I appreciate the super chat. Guys are coming at the coaches but not mentioning the players. If the players don't show up to play, defense is an effort versus UGA flying around. Yeah, that's a good point, too. Yeah, I think it's easier to – you know what? And that's the thing, too, is like a lot of times people were like, even Coach Saban a couple years ago was like, don't attack the players. They're not getting paid and all that stuff. The players are getting paid just as much as the coaches now. I mean, it's pro football. That's why, you got to, be a fan for your team, but also it's okay to, I think, criticize the players. They're making millions of dollars. I mean, I'm sure Malachi's making $1 million, right? Probably more than that. I'm sure a bunch of guys are. I can't even imagine how much money that Ryan Williams is going to require from NIL after this season. Right? I saw that little NIL evaluation of like 1.5 million. Try like 15 to 20, if not more. He's the best wide receiver in the country. Here's the real AP top 25. Alabama's 7th overall in the country. I appreciate you guys being here today on the show. Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. What's up, Chris? I appreciate you, man. Oh, you know what? I didn't mention this in the beginning of the show. I was looking at this storm, this next hurricane. Thoughts and prayers out to Florida. You know, I know we have a lot of viewers, across Florida, but like in the Tampa area. I mean, cases in Tampa. I'm sure he already left. But if you're going to be impacted by a storm, like, or your home is, or your property, like, thoughts and prayers to you. And those still being impacted by the storm. I mean, it's just been, 2 consecutive storms like this. Obviously, a lot of big impacts. So our thoughts and prayers to you. I appreciate you guys being on the show today. I know sometimes after a loss, you kind of like gotta step forward, but there's only one place to go, and that is forward. So will this team respond? How do they respond against South Carolina, another quality SEC team? They're 3-2 on the season. It's time for a wake up call, and sometimes you have to get punched in the mouth to be able to respond. I kind of like where the loss is in the season, because you still have so much football to play, right? They have to respond. Another loss, I think, is catastrophic, to be honest. And I think a back-to-back, another loss down the season is another loss down the season. I think a consecutive loss at home to South Carolina, I think that's catastrophic. Like, seriously, I think things would get real serious real fast. Like, I think it'd be catastrophic. I can't even imagine. Think about, after Vanderbilt, all these people talking out, about, Bama, this and that. But, coaches and the players, imagine losing another game, right? I don't think it's going to happen. I think these guys will lock in. So, Quincy, for those of you that are trying to, that would like to contact me offline, this is my emails at the bottom, nmpreps@gmail.com. You can also contact me through Instagram, Mr. Kyle Henderson. Those are some ways to contact me. I appreciate you guys being here. You could also follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We have a very active Facebook account. It's called Alabama Crimson Tide on YouTube. We have 30,000 followers, so if you want to join us, I post content there, questions there. I treat it like my website, basically. I don't post too much on X, Twitter, only kind of like, punchy, interviews. I don't really there's so much trash on X, it's just too much. But I appreciate you guys being here and giving me the opportunity to talk Alabama Crimson Tide football. I have so much gratitude. Hey, men in Tuscaloosa, if you're out there, if you're listening, or in Northport, if you guys want to come out to the workout for the F3, I'm leading all this week, led this morning. It's free. They're always free. And from Tuesday to Saturday, I'm leading all this week. So tomorrow, Butler Field, outside of the Capstone, right at the Arby's, 5:30 a.m. I hope to see you guys soon. As news happens, I produce content. You can always find me when news happens. If major news happens, I'm live. I promise you. But other than that, just content as it happens. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk Alabama football. I appreciate you guys. The sun's coming out. All right, we're almost to a next day. It's just kind of like a bad taste, right? It's a bad taste in your mouth. But I appreciate you guys being here right here on Bama Football on YouTube, coming to you from beautiful Hollywood, Alabama. Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. See you guys.